Imagine for a second that you have to pull off a massive, really high-stakes pitch. And not just to one group, but to like three completely different groups of highly cautious, incredibly skeptical investors.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and you're asking them for millions of dollars.
Of course.
And if that wasn't enough pressure, you need to walk away with a resounding yes from all three, or the entire project it totally collapses.
I mean, that sounds like an absolute nightmare for anyone in finance or sales. In that kind of high-pressure environment, securing even a single yes is a massive achievement. The sheer level of logistical coordination, the nuanced persuasion, and just the airtight logic required to pull off a triple victory like that is, well, it's staggering.
Which makes what happened on March 10th, 2026 seem almost mathematically impossible. Because on that single Tuesday, three entirely separate New Jersey school districts, so that's Berkeley Heights, Norwood, and Somerset Hills, they all put major multi-million-dollar school renovation referenda in front of their voters. And all three achieve resounding, unquestionable success at the ballot box.
That is exceptional rare. I mean, when you stand in front of taxpayers and ask them to approve millions in new municipal spending, the default reflex is almost always a very loud, very definitive no.
Oh, absolutely.
People guard their wallets closely, right? Especially when it comes to property taxes.
Definitely. So today, our mission for this deep dive is to uncover the blueprint behind this triple victory. We are looking at the strategic engine that drove all of this, which is the architectural firm Solutions Architecture. We really want to know how they managed to beat the odds not once, but 3 times on the exact same day. Okay, let's unpack this. Because to get a whole community to vote yes on spending their own money, you can't just stand at a podium and tell them you want to build something pretty.
No, definitely not.
You first have to prove undeniably that something is fundamentally broken. And that brings us to the groundwork. Where does a firm even begin when they're staring down 3 massive school districts?
Well, they begin by getting out into the physical reality of the buildings. So Solutions Architecture utilized a collaborative methodology that started, honestly, years before anyone ever cast a ballot.
Wow, years.
Yeah, it began with something called a facilities audit, which then feeds into a long-range facilities plan, or LRFP.
Particularly for Berkeley Heights. Let's pause and translate that for our listeners. What exactly is a long-range facilities plan, and how does an architectural firm use it to build a case for a community?
Think of the facilities audit as the diagnostic phase, and the LRFP as the treatment roadmap. But here is the critical distinction. And the Berkeley Heights presentation explicitly notes that this process was not meant to be an exhaustive inventory of every single doorknob,
Right.
or, scratched floorboard or flickering light switch in the district. It was a targeted triage.
And that makes a lot of sense, especially when you think about the psychology of the average voter. I mean, there's a very real phenomenon of decision fatigue.
Oh, absolutely.
If you hand a taxpayer a laundry list of 50 minor cosmetic repairs, they start debating the price of paint. They start questioning your financial responsibility, they get overwhelmed, they get skeptical, and they just vote no. But if you focus strictly on triage, so finding the critical failing infrastructure, you change the narrative entirely. It's like a highly specialized medical triage rather than just a standard physical.
Precisely. You shift the conversation from a wish list to an emergency response. What's fascinating here is that by identifying the highest priority systems that are quite literally at the end of their life cycle, you build a narrative of absolute necessity.
It's like trying to install a state-of-the-art home theater in a house with a sinking foundation.
Right. The shiny new technology is completely useless if the ceiling caves in.
Exactly. You have to fix the structural reality first. But how do you prove that structural reality to a gymnasium full of skeptical parents who, don't have engineering degrees?
You show them rather than tell them. So in Somerset Hills, for example, Solutions Architecture was on the ground in the summer of 2024, conducting high-tech 3D scanning of the school buildings.
Wait, 3D scanning?
Yeah, millimeter-accurate digital replicas. Oh, wow. So they aren't unrolling dusty, faded blueprints from the 1970s and asking the community to just use their imagination. They are capturing exact replicas of these schools as they stand today.
And the psychological impact of that cannot be overstated. When an architect can project a 3D model onto a screen and physically rotate it to show a community exactly where a roof is failing or where a structural load is compromised, it turns an abstract budget line item into a visceral, undeniable physical threat.
Right, seeing is believing.
Exactly. The visual proof neutralizes the skepticism. But they didn't just rely on the tech. They also ran demographic studies to understand population shifts and utilize community surveys to hear directly from the taxpayers. And then there was the human element inside the schools.
Right, because a laser scanner can tell you a wall is crooked, but it can't tell you how a school actually functions on a Tuesday morning in November.
Which is why the next phase of their methodology was so crucial. By the winter of 2024 into January 2025, they were actively evaluating educational needs right alongside the district administration and staff in Somerset Hills. And we saw a very similar timeline in Norwood. The Norwood district first broached the subject in December 2024, and by winter 2025, Solutions Architecture and their consultant engineers were having intensive face-to-face meetings with the administration.
So they were walking the halls with the people who actually live in those buildings, the teachers, the principals, the custodial staff.
Because those are the people who know what actually breaks down during a typical school day. Because they involve the administration, staff, and engineers early on, the architects grounded their designs in real-world educational and operational reality.
That makes total sense.
Yeah, in Norwood, for instance, the audit didn't just point out old pipes. It identified the urgent need for a two-classroom modular addition to relieve overcrowding and improve the student experience. And it paired that with crucial, unglamorous infrastructure work like roof replacements and toilet room upgrades. Yeah, and the unglamorous stuff is usually the hardest to sell. The Norwood presentation notes that while things like roofing and windows go entirely unnoticed in day-to-day use, keeping them up to date is the only way to ensure a safe, functional environment for the students and staff.
It is the invisible shield that keeps the school running. So at this point, the architects have successfully proved the undeniable need. They've done the triage, they've shown the 3D visual evidence, they've run the demographic studies and community surveys, and they've incorporated the daily struggles of the teachers.
Right, so the community understands that the schools are fundamentally deteriorating.
Exactly.
Okay, so the schools are falling apart, and the community sees it. But proving you need a new roof and actually having the cash in the bank to buy one are two very different universes. How on earth do these districts pay for this without completely bankrupting the town?
Well, this is where we transition from architectural planning into some truly masterful financial strategy. To understand the mechanism they use, we first have to understand why a district is forced to pursue a referendum in the first place. The Somerset Hills presentation lays out the severe limitations of a standard school budget very clearly. A district's general operating budget, which pays for day-to-day survival like teacher salaries, supplies, keeping the lights on, and basic maintenance, is strictly limited by a 2% cap.
Wow, just 2%. Let's put that in perspective for you listening. If general economic inflation is running at 3 or 4%, and your budget is legally capped at growing only 2%, you are essentially losing purchasing power every single year.
Yep.
These districts barely have enough cash to buy paper and pay the heating bill, let alone drop $10 million on a new roof or a modular classroom addition.
They're trapped in a cycle of deferred maintenance. They literally cannot afford to execute these major renovations out of their operating budget. Now, they could theoretically try to pay for these projects directly out of a capital budget, which is a separate fund for long-term investments, but there's a massive punitive downside to doing that.
Which is?
Projects funded directly out of a district's capital budget are not eligible for state funding.
Meaning the local taxpayers are on the hook for 100% of the cost. Which brings us to the referendum loophole.
Yes, it is a powerful mechanism baked into the state's financial architecture. In New Jersey, if the renovation work is funded through a referendum, and this is the critical phrase that is legally tied to education or maintenance, the state government steps in. They provide what is called debt service aid to pay down the bond.
Okay, before we get into the weeds of the aid, let's clarify the terminology for our listeners. When a school district issues a bond through a referendum, they are essentially taking out a massive, multi-million-dollar mortgage that the taxpayers have to pay back with interest over time, right?
That is exactly what it is. It's a municipal mortgage.
Yeah.
And debt service aid is the state of New Jersey agreeing to pay a significant percentage of your monthly mortgage payment. They step in and massively reduce the financial impact on the local taxpayer.
And the numbers they achieved by leveraging this are just wild. In Berkeley Heights, by going the referendum route, they secured up to 34% savings on all eligible projects.
Huge.
Right. Norwood got 25.7% of their eligible projects covered by debt service aid. And the Somerset Hills, they secured a staggering 29.8% in savings. On a $38 million total project cost, the state stepped in with over $11.3 million.
It is an incredible influx of capital. That $11 million simply would not exist if Somerset Hills tried to fund the repairs internally through their capital budget. By utilizing this strategy, the districts are essentially buying construction dollars at a severe discount.
Okay, hold on. I'm looking at these numbers, and I have to ask the obvious question. Wait, if the state is willing to give you millions of dollars for repairs, why doesn't every district just do this every year? Why isn't this standard operating procedure for every school board from Newark to Cape May? There has to be a catch.
Oh, there is absolutely a catch, and it is the reason this strategy requires such nerve. The catch is the word referendum. You cannot unlock a single dime of that state money without putting the bond to a public vote. You have to actively campaign and convince the taxpayers in your town to willingly take on tens of millions of dollars in new communal debt.
And if they vote no?
You get nothing. Zero state aid, zero new construction, and your roofs continue to leak while your operating budget continues to bleed. The risk is absolute.
And, if you're listening to this and you're a homeowner, you know exactly how painful property tax increases are.
Right.
You guard your monthly budget.
Right.
So imagine being the architect or the superintendent whose job is to stand in a gymnasium and convince thousands of stressed homeowners to willingly raise their own debt.
It's daunting.
Even with the best triage, even with the 3D spans showing the failing roof, taxpayers are incredibly, understandably sensitive to their wallets.
Which perfectly sets up the final and arguably most brilliant piece of solutions architecture's puzzle. It wasn't just about showing the voters what was broken. It wasn't even just about showing them the state aid discount. The true masterstroke was how they entirely eliminated the taxpayer burden through timing.
How do you get taxpayers to say yes to millions in new debt? You choreograph the vote so perfectly that they don't actually feel the new debt in their bank account.
Exactly. The financial strategy is built around a concept called debt service rolling off.
Let's break that down because this is where the genius really lies. In all three of these districts, Berkeley Heights, Norwood, and Somerset Hills, the communities already had old debt on the books from previous school projects they had approved decades ago. And in a beautiful, highly calculated stroke of timing, that old debt was scheduled to end or roll off right around March of 2026.
And that timing was not a coincidence. Solutions Architecture and the district's financial consultants looked at that expiration timeline and structured the new 20-year bonds for these referenda to align flawlessly with that retiring debt.
Seamlessly.
Yeah, they assumed a roughly 4.0% to 4.1% interest rate on these new bonds, and they engineered the math so the new debt replaced the old debt the absolute moment it vanished.
Here's where it gets really interesting. To put this in everyday household terms, it's exactly like paying off your 5-year car loan. And instead of pocketing that $400 a month, you immediately redirect it to finance a home kitchen renovation. Your monthly budget hasn't changed a single cent, but your house is suddenly upgraded.
That analogy perfectly captures the mechanism. The district is simply repurposing the capacity for debt that the community has already absorbed, accepted, and budgeted for. And the results of this rolling off strategy, when applied to these specific school districts, were phenomenal.
Let's look at the Norwood pitch.
Yeah, because they combined the retiring debt with the state aid, they didn't just promise the voters a zero tax increase. The debt service actually reduced.
They actually gave money back. I was reading the presentation, and it shows that for the average assessed home in Norwood, the tax impact decreased, saving them $171 per year. If you are a voter, that almost sounds like a scam, but it's just brilliant, undeniable math.
We saw a similar highly targeted impact in Somerset Hills. They structured the new debt so that the tax impact will actually decrease over the life of the 20-year bond for residents in Bernardsville, Keepak, Gladstone, and Far Hills. The financial modeling ensured the community wouldn't face a sudden, unbearable spike.
And even in Berkeley Heights, where they couldn't quite get to a negative number, they utilized the strategy to massively offset the new costs. They achieved a nearly net neutral target. The estimated tax increase was minimal, just $250.37 a year on an average home assessed at around $318,947.
When you break that down, it's roughly $20 a month.
It's literally the cost of buying a cup of coffee and a pastry once a month, and in exchange, you completely rebuild the failing infrastructure of the local school system. For a massive district-wide renovation, that is an incredibly palatable proposition to hand a voter.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the resounding success of these referenda across 3 different districts on the exact same day wasn't just about good architectural blueprints.
Right.
It was about masterclass financial choreography and deep community psychology. They found the critical structural needs, they leveraged the state's complex rules to extract maximum free capital, and they timed the entire endeavor to land exactly when the community's old debt was expiring. They managed to upgrade vital educational environments essentially for free, or at a fraction of the cost.
So what does this all mean? When we look back at our initial mission to find the blueprint for this triple victory, it's clear it wasn't a fluke, and it wasn't just good luck at the ballot box. Solutions architecture didn't just draw up plans.
No, not at all.
They utilized 3D scanning, collaborative prioritization with the staff, demographic studies, and community surveys. They navigated complex state funding loopholes to secure millions in debt service aid. And then, the absolute masterstroke, timing the ballot questions for March 10th, 2026, to perfectly catch the wave of retiring old debt.
It's a formula that requires incredible foresight and patience. You can't just wake up in January and decide to float a bond in March. As we saw, they started the scanning and the on-the-ground evaluations years in advance to ensure every single piece of the puzzle aligned perfectly on voting day. It's really a testament to treating community investment as a holistic campaign.
Which leaves me with a thought that I cannot quite shake.
Yeah.
We've just spent this time walking through how this exact strategic formula, timing new infrastructure investments perfectly with the expiration of old debt and the availability of state aid, worked so flawlessly to get a yes from incredibly cautious voters in local school districts.
Yeah.
So it makes you wonder, how many other massive municipal or even statewide public works projects out there are failing at the ballot box right now, simply because their timing and their financial packaging are fundamentally out of sync? If our cities and states treated their infrastructure pitches like this one, maybe we'd be living in a very different world. Something to think about the next time you see a multi-million-dollar bond measure on your local ballot.